you might as well continue standing because coming up next on the stage, actor and producer Michael B. Jordan.
Listen, boy, come on now. Boy,
So to start off, just make some noise if you were moved by their performances.
Thank you so much. I'm telling you, this is the real. This is what it is. Thank you guys so much. I've been telling him this is the real. This is what you did this for, man. And I commend this man for what he did behind the camera. In front of the camera, I will continue to tell you that this is brilliant on you. You could be doing any movie that you want. You are the biggest star on the planet, and they will tell you this is the most important, I think, film that I've been a part of. And, am I right? And I'll go on to say I've known Michael B. Jordan since he was before all this. You know what I'm saying? Whatever that is. Well, come here, boy. Let go. Well, relax. When he had on just a little tank top and braids when he looked Hawaiian. But I'll tell you this. I tell you this. He did something incredible that most big stars don't do. The narrative. If you look at what he did for us in Fruitville Station and how he touched and captured our hearts. And I tell you all the time, I went to that movie with some guys and some thugs. I went to that movie with some thugs who don't cry, and I heard them sniffling in the whole nine. And then you look at what he did at Black Panther, where he played Killmonger. And even though to me, top 3 villains of all time, but was it a villain? Because you were so incredible with your narrative and what it meant to our culture that we began to root for you at a certain point in that movie. Am I right? Especially when you threw Black Panther off the mountain. When you threw him off the mountain, I said, oh my goodness. Anyway, okay.
Oh gosh. Oh.
Did you feel that way when you threw it? I said, oh man, where is Chadwick? And you looked incredible in that movie as well. I mean, but to take now this movie and play such an important film to let all of us not only enjoy the narrative but enjoy the performance is good on you, Michael B. Jordan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So actually, on that note, Michael, once you get over the praise that you just got, tell us, how did you come to learn about Bryan Stevenson's story?
Honestly, my agency sent me his book, and I got a chance to start to read it. They wanted me to consider telling the story, and I went on and watched his TED Talk. Saw some of his interviews, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that I didn't know about him and his work. So I got a chance I started to dig a little bit deeper, on his past and kind of like who he was as a person. And I was shocked that he wasn't a household name. I was shocked that his story wasn't easily accessible, that it just wasn't common knowledge. So that really inspired me. That really sparked me to want to tell the story and try to get it on the biggest platform possible, so other people could have that feeling of discovery like I did, because I felt like motivated. I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I felt like I needed to be a part of the narrative to help put this story out there, to put his work, to make it just make people aware of what was going on. He has a way to speak, the way he puts things in layman's terms and makes everybody feel connected to what he's doing and connected to the issue. I thought was brilliant. He is a very, very important person. He is our generation's hero. He is that guy. He's a black superhero. So all those reasons was why I wanted to kind of put this project together. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow. Thank you for introducing us to the story. Absolutely. And so, Jamie, how did Walter McMillian find his way into your life?
Well, like I said, I have to thank Michael. I was humbled and honored to get that call. But Walter McMillian affects all of us. Like, if you're a black man and you deal with a perception of who you are, that's how we can so closely identify with what he went through. And I talk about, I've always talked about perception, but when it came to actually putting Walter McMillian together, like, it was something that was close to me. I don't like the perception of prison. I don't go visit people in jail or anything like that. And it's, if you're black, sad to say, a lot of us have that experience, close proximity. Like my father, he went to jail for $25 worth of illegal substance. They put him in jail for 7 years. This black man taught in South Dallas black studies for 25 years. The very judge that he would have come and visit at the school and tell the kids what to do and not to do actually presided over his case and put this man in a cell with people that he taught. But what they didn't understand was that man was everything to me. That man taught me how to throw a football. That man taught me how to play tennis. I said, why would we learn how to play tennis? He said, I want you to know what everybody do. White folks, everything. He said, I'm going to teach you how to swim. Taught me everything. That man now sits in a cell. And so I didn't go visit him. I wrote him one letter, and I wrote him, I said, if you get out, when you get out, I'll save your life. And then the thing is that he did get out. And by that time I had got on. I said, Pops, we good now. And so I got an opportunity to take my father to the U.S. Open. Got a chance to watch Venus play. And the tears ran down our cheeks. Not all the time does it end up that way. So you take that DNA of what that experience was, and then you place it in Walter, who gets picked off the street, said that he killed somebody in the place he'd never been, and then you put him on death row, but the only thing he has is hope, and the only thing he has is hope, and the one thing you can't give anybody on death row is hope. And all of a sudden, an angel walks in by the name of Brian Stevenson, played beautifully by Michael B. Jordan. And so that was the way to get to Walter. And at the same time, aesthetically we looked alike. We had the same cheekbones, the diamond head. You know what I'm saying? That hairstyle in the 80s, I had that cut. Just to pack it on the side because the cut wasn't right. And then it was just a matter of putting things that I deal with in the South. I'm from the South, so I understood what the South was. I'm from Terrell, Texas. So, you from Texas? Oh, you got family. So you understand, Texas, I love the South, but there is definitely a racial component that goes along with being in the South that I grew up on. And to let you know, my hometown, the racial component sometimes rears its ugly head, because in 2008, I'm sure you guys know this guy by the name of President Barack Obama. Yes. If there's any indication that America, anyway, it's not the most incredible country in the world. But when he became president, the only city to not put him on the front of the newspaper, and our newspaper is only 6 pages, was Terrell, Texas. Right? Makes you stop. Think about it. And then when CNN went down to ask them, why didn't you put him on the front of the newspaper? And they said, well, we run a newspaper, not a scrapbook. So we're able to get to that Southern. Not to say everything in the South is bad, but we were able to know what Walter McMillian was going through. Wow.
You can talk all night, always dropping gems. Now, Michael, when I spoke with Brian Stevenson a little while ago, he commended you. Well, he said that you had such a commanding performance as him, and he particularly highlighted the fact that when you were in your courtroom scenes, You were very composed, and yet you were still powerful. You did not go off the handle. You were not large. You were not so much of what we often, sometimes can see within courtroom drama portrayals. So I want to know from you how you created that performance. How did you decide that that was the way that you wanted to go while you were portraying Brian?
I think it was more or less, it was a choice that we made early on in the production with how we wanted Brian to be portrayed. One of his philosophies is that he has to be very persuasive in these rooms. Dealing with a lot of obstacles down in the South and dealing with, these institutions that, aren't really friendly, and not really, generous with, giving him what he wanted. He has to conduct himself a certain type of way. If he was emotional, if he was loud, if he get angry, it wouldn't help him to get anything. He wouldn't be able to get any movement. So he really wanted to, he's really thoughtful, he's very methodical in that way. So we wanted to play a more, thoughtful, reserved kind of performance. So even times like when I was reading the script, a lot of my initial acting choices were to get upset and angry. It might be maybe be a little bit more emotional. But in that case, he wouldn't be able to service his client. He always puts his pride and his ego to the side for the betterment of his client. He always thinks client first. Because at the end of the day, Brian Stevenson got a chance to go home at night. He would spend all his time, on death row. He would spend all the time in prisons and these courtrooms, and he knew that he had his freedom. So what he had to go through temporarily in that moment was nothing compared to the stakes of his client. So we always kind of put that in check. So I always try to keep that in the forefront of my brain when we were, when we were in scenes, and just honestly try to follow his lead. Brian is a huge resource. I've played real characters before, but unfortunately not being able to have him there to ask a question or be able to pick up the phone and call him, I would have to get to know that person and the people that knew him the best. But through Brian Stevenson, he would leave the Supreme Court and come to set. He would leave set and go straight to the Supreme Court and fight cases that were literally life and death. So to be able to pick the phone and send him a text or get on the phone and talk to him was a huge resource for me. So we just wanted to be honest. We didn't want to take too many creative liberties. We didn't want to make this film. We didn't want to manipulate anybody's emotions. We wanted this film to be a raw kind of portrayal of what happened and what his experiences were like, in those situations, and let people feel that. Let them spark conversation. Let people start to talk and provoke thought. We want this piece to really hold a mirror up to the audience and let them reflect. And hopefully we did that.
Beautiful. Guys, I love that you said that because I do feel as though you didn't teach us how we were supposed to feel during each scene. You gave us room to breathe. You gave us room to sniffle. There were a lot of tissues that I heard being opened up in my area over here during the screening, so it landed, so thank you so much for that. Now, Jamie, I think one of the difficult things when you are in a movie that does possess so much weight to it, because there's so much reality in here, is to also find those moments for a little bit of levity, a little bit of humor, and yet there were scenes between the two of you where we laughed, like the moments. Can you talk with us a little bit about how you figured out how to still bring that joy through, how to still bring a little bit of lightness in, even in the midst of some very dark times?
I think we're still people, no matter what we're going through, even in the toughest circumstance. Even when you go to a funeral, like my best friend had lost his son, but he's a comic, and we go to his funeral, and there were still those moments where your body needs it. Your body needs to be able to sort of let go a little bit and sort of reset itself when it comes to emotions. So, there were a couple of things that I thought that were beautifully done with Michael B. and the director, and sort of crafting that these two guys are still guys. No matter the circumstance, they still have to be able to get along with each other, understand each other. And I think Walter was letting the pressure off of Brian, because Brian had never seen it. I don't know if anybody, like when I went to Death Row in San Quentin, working on another thing, I was like, it was great. People got shotguns, and dudes coming in with chains, and there was a guy in a little glass box. Little white dude was reading, and it was strange, you know. But the correctional officers or people that worked there, it was the norm. So basically what we were giving you in those small moments was, we want to give you normalcy, because it can't all be swing low, sweet. It can't just, everything is that. It has to be something that's normal. And I think that's brilliant in how the decision Michael B. Jordan made to really make it real. So that's what you're feeling in this situation.
It's kind of like, you know, what you were just saying, like, you know, when you're on death row, they know their circumstances are so dire. They know it's awkward for somebody else. So let me let you off the hook and make sure I'm gonna make this life for you. So I know what you're feeling right now. Exactly. So that was kind of like what we were really like playing with in those moments sometimes.
Yeah, because like I said, I didn't like any process of being in jail. And like none of that shit when I walked around. Let's hurry up and get this scene. None of this shit. And because you know, like, and it's no disrespect to the guys. There was a correctional officer there who was playing the correctional officer, but then it was a real correctional officer telling him what to do. And so he was so matter of fact when they were putting the cuffs on. He said, "Yeah, put him on tighter. He's a bigger one. He's a bigger one. Put him on tighter." I said, "Man, these motherfuckers is tight enough. You put them on tighter, I'm actually going to go to jail." But we took that emotion and we put it into the scene, because it's like those perceptions, man. That's why I think this movie is so necessary and so important that we get it out there, because it's that perception of the black man and making it look like, just because he is black, we're so automatically used to going to jail or being in jail. We even rap about it. We've gotten so used to it. It's weird, you know. And I used to do a joke I used to do a joke called like, because it was dealt with perception. Like, I just did a gig in Chicago, and I had a hoodie on, and I go into this hotel. It's all white, and I go into this. I get on the elevators. There's white people in there. When I get in with the hoodie, they huddle to the corner. Cheryl, Tammy, get here, Tammy, huddle close together, huddle. And then one of the ladies had enough courage to look beyond my hoodie and said, "It's Jamie Foxx." You're laughing, but how real is it? So that's why I applaud this man, because this movie is going to artistically try to open up some of that and knock down some of those percent.
There's a particular moment during the very first scene between you two where, Jamie, as your character, you slam your hands down on a table. And Michael, if you were acting, you fooled me, because you look genuinely startled when he throws his hands down on the table there. How often were either of you genuinely surprised by any of the acting choices that your partner made?
I mean, I think, that's one of the joys of acting, right? It's like, first of all, I've known him for a long time. Like you said, tank top braids, Hawaiian. That's it. I've known him all the time. But and it's like when you're with your friends and somebody you know, like family, whatever, you're able to say harsh things. You're able to joke a little more than you will with a complete stranger, because there's no love lost. It's all love. So that comfortability, when we get into a scene, is there also. So we can push each other and take risks and surprise each other, because we know we're listening. I have the part about acting being the scene is listening to one another, and he's a great listener, and I love to listen. So when we're both giving each other what we need in order to get off in the scene, that's when we really start to see magic. So, but then also the flip side to acting and shooting these scenes is multiple takes. So the first couple times, there's those organic things that happen, and you're like, oh wow, that was we got gold right there. We got a good moment. Let's follow that up on the next side. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue with that choice, because that's a good option to have. We just want to give Destin an incredible editors options, because we know we're shooting one movie when we're filming, but then they're also going to edit another movie, so it goes through so many different stages. We just want to be able to give as many options so they can go back and craft the movie that it needs to be. And sometimes everything that feels right in the moment doesn't translate to a great movie. So one of the things that I applaud Jamie is always being able to, go those, when we got it, cool, and then let's give them something else, But then we know we have those choices locked in the can already, so we just kind of move like that and keep it going.
Well, I can speak to him something that wasn't surprising because I know he's dynamic, but in that courtroom scene, and hopefully this will be on maybe when it comes out on DVD, the extras, but there was an incredible moment with Michael B. Jordan as an actor, and all of us here are artists, and it's one thing when you're acting with someone you don't know, but when you're acting with someone you know who actually cares about acting, that's a wonderful thing. As I watched Michael B. Jordan try to walk down the speech, and a couple of times he fumbled. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. Oh, sorry, bro. Sorry, And I could see because he wanted this to be so right. And at one point I pulled him to the side and said, "Hey, listen, man, don't worry about that. This is your movie. If it takes you 30 minutes to say one line, you take that time. Because everybody's here for you and everything that you've done for this." And he walked over. And he came back. And he lullabied it. And when he lullabied it, the extras gave him a standing ovation. Here's the thing. He never saw it because he was, and this is when you forget about everything and it's just really about the craft. He never saw it. He was so caught up, and I went to tell him, "Great job." I touched him, and tears was in his eyes, and he did that. And when he walked off, I said, "Uh-oh." And you know what black people call it? That's the Holy Ghost. He got the Holy Ghost. He got the actor Holy Ghost. I was just like, and I texted him, you got that text, and I said, "All I can tell you is that the ladies that were in the fourth row are weeping because you have touched everybody in here." So I hope they get a chance to show all of those takes because it was brilliant, and it lets you know that the actor, not just the celebrity, but the actor is in good hands.
I mean, I think we all just need to take a moment for the actor Holy Ghost.
I mean, that's the support that you get, with one another. Like, this whole movie set was a family. I think, everybody that had something to do with making this movie really cared about what was going on, and the fact that, Jamie would always hold me down, in certain scenes, or if he knew it was too heavy, he would play music, to kind of break the mood, or if he wanted to set the tone, we would play certain songs to kind of get us in the mood, So it was all hands on deck, and that courtroom scene was a tough one. Like, we all get scripts, and we, there's certain scenes that you put up on your wall. It's like, hey, look, this is the one. This is the one that I need to nail. It was a pivotal, scene in the movie. It was a pivotal scene in Ultimate Villain's case. And I definitely wanted it to be right. So, I definitely couldn't have handled it the way I did if it wasn't for Jamie being there for me. So that was a real prideful moment for me.
So something else that the two of you have in common is that we watched both of you portray comic book villains. Yeah. We did things. But now to actually both be playing real life heroes, I'm very curious about what's one courageous quality about the men who you were playing that you discovered in the midst of preparing?
I think optimism. I think Brian Stevens is extremely optimistic. in the most dire situations. You know, I think when most people would have given up or just fatigued, you know, he's been doing this for 30 plus years. He's dedicated his life to a cause. And he's still optimistic that he can change the system. And no matter how many, you know, issues and incidents that we see on the news, and he still shows up to work every day, him and EJI that he created, you know, his organization. And he's still working pro bono, you know what I'm saying, still defending these people. He still is in the Supreme Court every day. He's still creating the Legacy Museum down in Montgomery, Alabama, that I encourage everybody to go visit at one point. You know, the memorial site that he has of all the lynchings and all the lynches that happened down in the South. He has these statues that he wants the certain counties to take ownership of, because he feels like if you don't, there hasn't been any real healing done here because we haven't owned our dark past yet. And we have to own it, you know what I'm saying, and before we can actually start to move forward in a real type of way. So his mind and his strategy behind it all is so optimistic. I feel like after getting to know him and understanding the things that he wants to do and the things that he will do, I'm fully on board with trying to support this guy and trying to be a part of that message. So I think to answer your question, it would be being optimistic.
Optimism. Thank you for that.
Well, when you look at Walter, you look at, unfortunately, you look at any black man who has to deal with a situation. I think his, I wouldn't say passion, but I just think that if there is a word to encompass just not giving up, if you all in here could just put yourself in his shoes for just 1 second, it's one thing to be wrongly accused of something and to go to jail, but to know that you're going to be put to death. Just think about that for 1 second. And there's no way you can get out of it. And anybody who pays attention to even what went on at that time, the people that did these deeds still remain in power. Think about that for a second. Think about being Walter, that black man in a cell praying to God to change things for anything, any type of light. Praying to a God, which is interesting because he's in the South, and the very people that believe in God, the very people that believe, that tell you Jesus Christ is the way, are the people that are doing it to you. So whatever that word is just, I'm just not going to give up. I know I've lived my life to have a better shot than this. So I don't know what that word is, and maybe somebody will come up with it. But he just absolutely didn't give up. And what we found from Brian Stevenson is that he gave those guys hope, and the worst thing you give a person on death row is hope. And so I would say his hopeful quality.
Well, I can think of no better way to end tonight's session than with what you two just shared right there. Optimism and hope. So thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. Thank you for taking the time out.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for finishing. And remember,